Okay, bye, Tom. We have work to do.
Listen, I'll leave you gentlemen to it. All right, the lad will leave now, obviously.
We're actually going to make water more abundant. And yes, you've got reduction. And to be honest, some of the water efficient fixes are not very resistible. In fact, I'm testing them all. So I'm actually, my house is a laboratory, and I'm testing every one of them.
Your wife must love you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, actually,
you've got like a sink with 10 taps. Welcome to The Stream, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation featuring guests with a bias for action in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarney, a water strategy consultant, doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
And we are thrilled and delighted to be joined by Frantz Beznik, who is the Senior Director for Sustainable Innovation at Procter Gamble. Frantz, good to see you. How are you?
Absolutely great. Great weather and ready for it.
That's what we like to hear. We like to hear. Frantz, I was going to get into a conversation with you about the football results. Obviously, you work in Belgium and you're based in France, and England are doing pretty well right now. But I'm very aware that in 4 weeks' time, when this goes live, England could have either been knocked out of competition or we could have won it and it's coming home. So I'm very cautious not to timestamp this, so we will avoid that. And obviously, Will, I'm taking it, are you a soccer fan?
Well, I think you're talking about football, and our season doesn't start for several months, so I'm a little confused.
No, we were going to talk about proper football with the round ball, the soccer.
I get it. That's a very weak American joke. Apologies, guys.
Well, France is out, so there's not even going to be a conversation about France, so let's get started.
It's a bit of a sore subject in France where you're residing today, right? So yeah, let's move on. Maybe after Saturday we can have this conversation when England play. But good stuff. Well, Frantz, lots to talk with you about today. One of the core things is, as well as your hat as a Senior Director of Sustainable Innovation at Procter Gamble, you're also the co-founder of the 50 Litre Home Coalition. Fantastic development. We've got lots to get into. We want to kind of find out the who, the why, the where, the what. But maybe as kind of the introduction for your origin story, tell us where this idea came from for 50 litres. Why 50 litres?
Yeah, sure, Tom. Well, 50 litre is inspired by Cape Town. You probably know 2 years ago about the city was facing a looming day zero, the day where there's zero water off the tap, finished, over. And what the city officials decided to do to circumvent the issue is to actually constrain the population overnight down to 50 litres per day per person. And they were at about 120 or more. So that was like almost a threefold reduction overnight with no innovation, no solution. So what I've done with others is go on the ground and meet with Cape Townians, live life at 50 litres per day per person when there's no innovation. And life is very sacrificial. And in fact, life is even hazardous in terms of micro and hygienic issues that they may encounter. So that's the inspiration. And of course, in face with that, and looking at the rest of the world that can run up to 500 litres per day per person, here came the idea. How about we're gonna come back in a few years and create life at 50 litres per day per person that feels like 500 litres. So it's not about sacrificial anymore. It's about new abundance.
I love that you talk about abundance because, that is blowing up the status quo. We always talk about scarcity, and flipping it around is how do we create abundance where everyone has access to 50 liters through technology innovation and business model innovation and so on. So Frantz, I really am a huge fan of abundance, and I'm a huge fan of how you're thinking about the 50 liter home, creating abundance.
One of the ideas is how we make water circular, like how we make water reusable. Because at the end of the day, the inspiration came from Cape Town because we would see those people carrying water from the shower very carefully over to the washing machine, and pour into the washing machine, wash their loads with that water, then take that water off again, put into a bucket, wash surfaces and floors, and take that bucket water again and water the gardens around the little plants they had. Some will actually save that last bucket. Off of it, all started at the shower effluents to actually flush their toilets, so one time a day bucket they were allowed for. So that reusing water was the source of inspiration as to how to make water reusable, but in a hygienic, way versus that hazardous way.
So tell us, who you came back and you thought, right, 50 litres can be done, but within Cape Town it was quite a 50 litres within a restrictive setting. It's like, we have to do this because of looming day zero. Perhaps there's a bigger argument in terms of lack of foresight and planning for the long term. But actually the context around that was quite negative. But the narrative with what you're doing is supposed to be quite positive, right? Like you say, make 50 litres feel like 500 through abundance. So you obviously came back charged with energy, and you rounded up quite a group of companies. Tell us the kind of the who is part of the coalition.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, first off, the second part of the inspiration is coming from our own labs in P&G, where we've created, literally a sachet of a little treatment plant in a sachet where you actually treat unpotable water to drinking water, safe drinking waters. And we typically, propose this sachet to populations that are in drinking water needs in Africa and India or after catastrophe. And so that was the genesis of the idea. How will you make water reusable in situ, instantaneously, and safely, hygienically? And of course, as you hinted to it, Tom, it's not just going to be P&G. Yes, we can create, technologies that make water reusable and hygienically, reusable. But we need systems change. We need infrastructure systems change inside the homes. Once we change the inside of the homes to 50 litre, down to 50 litre, when today you run at 200, 300, or 500, you probably need to adapt the outside infrastructure, the supply and the treatment of the outside. And that's where, we basically looked at what are the partners over the value chain of water, from the inside all the way to the outside, point of views inside of the homes all the way to the outside, including the treatment, that we need to gather together to basically be able to create that systems change. So we're talking about Kohler, bathroom manufacturers, Electrolux, dish and laundry appliance for the inside of the homes with us. And then we've got Suez as a water treatment and supply company, and Engie for the energy, and then Arcadis that design infrastructure for cities. So that really is covering the whole value chain, if you will, so that we can create systems change.
Frantz, I agree with your, collective action.
Yeah.
Thinking and systems change. One of the things I find really fascinating, incredibly powerful in a way, is here is P&G, a CPG company that is intervening in a way that I think most people would not have thought of. It's, so why a CPG company? Why P&G in this role to basically, as Tom and I have talked about, create this catalytic community to change what's going on in a home, however you define a home, and that in turn changes public policy, utilities, industrial innovation. It strikes me that that's an incredibly powerful piece of this that most people would not have thought of.
That's true, and the reason we're getting into this, and sometimes I feel like, oh my God, what am I getting into? Is because it's frightening. I mean, I've got to tell you, when I pull the company and say we've got to create that, and we're going to pull out another set of companies, and we're creating the coalitions, like sometimes you just take vertigo, and you're like, what am I doing here? But the reality is, it's the other side of P&G, Procter Gamble. Yes, we're doing beauty care and fabric care and hygiene and beauty, but we are also the last person and people in between the consumer and the drain point and sewages. That's where we play. And we play amongst 5 billion consumers over the entire world. And we know what's happening intimately with the consumer in that zone. So we're at the last point of view is between, drainage and sewage.
Right.
And so if we go back from that understanding, we go back all through the chain, and we should be able to solve that. But we need to catalyze the whole value chain players. Otherwise, we're nothing on our own.
And it's powerful that that's where you're intervening, because it has a cascading effect up and down the value chain then.
Absolutely. You got it. So that's the starter. And yes, it does give me vertigo when you say that, Will.
Yeah, well, that's my job in the duo here.
But we've got great partners, and frankly, it's gonna work out. It's just a big task.
Awesome.
I think it's also interesting how you've got from the start the World Economic Forum involved, right? Because we always think there's a lot of developments on the tech side, and Will, you talk about this a lot, but also the policy changes needed are kind of playing catch up to where we need to be. If you can get the policy in place to say, drive in-home water recycling or efficiency, that can drive so much change, but policy is often the last thing to move. So by having the World Economic Forum involved, the idea is that you're reaching global leaders and decision makers, right?
Absolutely, and the World Economic Forum has been partnering with us from day one. In fact, the first time I ever pitched 50-liter home was 2 forums ago, when it was just an embryo of an idea, and the World Economic Forum was really helpful in partnering, even at the embryo stage of the idea. Of course, the bigger role that the forum can play is help us create the visas, not just as a private multi-stakeholders group, but as a private and public multi-stakeholders, especially cities, governments, policies and regulators. So that's the grander role that they will help us play. We do also have the Water Resource Group and World Bank and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. So we could really, with a group of 10 right now and looking to, welcome a few more, cover the public-private, multi-stakeholders group we're aiming for.
Frantz, I've got a question, and it comes out of engaging with organizations like the World Economic Forum and WBCSD and so on.
Yeah.
What do you need right now to scale? And obviously, sitting in the U.S. and sitting in the Western U.S., where and I won't use the word drought, but we're facing very significant scarcity and poor water quality issues. So what would be your ask?
Yeah, it's a good question too. What is the first step for us is to create a few pilots. What we want to do is focus on a couple of pilots. And frankly, West Coast is a target region. We've got 4 target regions around the world. West Coast, North America. And of course, you're just going through a drought right now. We are looking for China, India, and Latin America. So these are the 4 regions, and where we want to set pilots, demonstrate at the scale of an apartment, 10 apartments, maybe a district, what it is that we can, what is 50-liter home that feels like 500, and how we, how it looks like, how it feels like, and are we delivering it against that ambition, and so that these points of learnings will be able to inform the scaling, because you got it. I think what we want to do is not just do a few pilots and leave. The idea is to make 50-liter home the aspiration of the world, so it's irresistible, at the same time as a new standard of living, if you will. But we, the ask is right now working, off with cities probably, finding those partnerships where we can create a pilot in say 18 to 24 months as we cook a bit more the innovations, and demonstrate that with those partnerships.
That'd be an amazing project to work on, right? You're creating these flagship smart water homes from the ground up, presumably with new home builders. So from the point of water coming in through to the end where grey water's being recycled, every single part of where the water's touched, from the kitchen to the bathroom, the appliances are smart. And obviously you're still reliant upon, perhaps, how can you say, kind of environmentally conscious consumers playing a part in that as well, because you could have the most efficient home in the world, but if everyone's still pretty wasteful in their behavior, you're not going to get down to the 50 liters. So it needs to be hand in hand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why West Coast, for example, frankly, is a key target regions, because people need solutions right now, and we want to create solutions that it's one of the best test regions where we can go at, for sure.
Being out here in Denver, and it's essentially ground zero for the need for public policy change and behavioral change, catalyzed by technology. The ability to really demonstrate to people that they can do more with less, or do without. And it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you were asking about the ask. I think right now it's really finding those city partnerships where we can create those pilots, and what we want to do is really work that in a very inclusive way, like technology, but also public. How we work with consumer communities, so that from the ground up we actually define what's last from the consumers, from the public, and we're just not constructing sort of, artificial homes that will suddenly do 50 liter that feels like 500, but will actually be not necessarily meeting basic needs. So I think it's really important that we have that balance of public, inputs and consumers, which is what P&G is a lot about as well.
Frantz, is your point of, I hate to say sale, but intervention at the city scale? So you're going through the public sector. Are there other ways to do this? Like, could you go to a major developer in the American West, or, a planned community that's on the drawing boards, and just get that baked in at the beginning?
Yeah, it's a great point. And frankly, I would return that question to you in terms of what you think could be other venues, because we're following a bit of a model right now, at least, not just putting all the eggs of the baskets of the cities, but I'm really, eager to learn what could be other venues. And frankly, that's why I really am happy you're hosting me in that episode.
So Frantz, I will definitely follow up with you. As I look at the ecosystem, where I typically sit is on the private sector. So, the development community, technology providers, and so on. And I think it's a compelling value proposition that you've developed here. And getting it out in front of people that have a vested interest in building a community or, a city, whatever it may be, in order to, thrive in the 21st century, could be a really interesting way to get it a pilot. So
no, I welcome, absolutely. And frankly, they are new builders we know of, but frankly, that's an avenue I would be happy to hear more.
Okay, great. Okay, bye, Tom. We have work to do.
I'll leave you gentlemen to it. All right, the lad will leave now, obviously. No, I think it's really interesting because Frantz, when we first spoke, when we were writing a report on the rise of the smart water home for BlueTech, so we sort of mapped different players and the market drivers, right? And we did a detailed report about the 50 litre home coalition. But I spoke to some of the major manufacturers around the topic of water efficient appliances and products. And for me, one of the really interesting takeaways was, for the last few years, really water efficiency hasn't driven the sale of products. It hasn't been a key differentiator. Where they're seeing potential room for innovation and growth is on water security. So there was a really interesting partnership between Moen, and they acquired Flow. So this is a hardware solution with a smart valve linked to your phone. So if you get detection of moisture in a room, even if you're away from your house, you can shut that down. And one of the pieces of feedback was that there's more interested in that type of kind of smart water home development than actually having kind of perhaps more water efficient toilets and taps, which I found really interesting. But I think that will change as people become more aware of climate issues and their individual footprints and what they can do. But really, we phrased it up, but people are perhaps more interested in saving potentially hundreds of pounds worth of damage and insurance costs than kind of saving pounds and dollars here and there on their water footprint.
It's fair, and to be honest, and I always like to say that I'm in my job, I want to make sustainable irresistible, which means that the benefit that I'm trying to cook is not water saving.
Right.
Water saving is going to be a bonus, but I want work. 80% of my brain time as a P&G brain in that game plan is about what are new consumer benefits we can uniquely enable, because we're actually going to make water more abundant. And yes, you've got reduction. And to be honest, some of the water efficient fixes are not very resistible. In fact, I'm testing them all. So I'm actually, my house is a laboratory. I'm testing every one of them.
Your wife must love you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, actually,
you've got like a sink with 10 taps.
That's what I'm localized in France right now, just to do a bit more of experimentation. But the truth is, this is not very delightful. The experience of a water efficient shower is not necessarily delightful.
Right.
I guess what we want to do is a couple of things. First, open the innovation box with a reuse. How we can make water reusable in a way that is going to be delightful, which in itself is a challenge. So just move away from reduce the flow, make it atomize, reduce. But how about we're going to reuse water? And if we're able to clean that up in situ and fast, how does that open your horizons? Point number one. Point number two, how that creates totally new benefit for the consumer that they love. And it's not about selling water savings, it's about selling those benefits. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
You bring up I think another powerful point about, creating brand love. If you are building your brand value and connectivity and that delight with the consumer, 50 liters could be absolutely magical.
Absolutely.
And that opens up a whole other segment of, consumers out there that, they don't want to know. It should be invisible to them. It should be delightful, though.
Yeah, that's exactly, you got it. So for me, of course, the first consumer target would be those in the West Coast, for example. But ultimately, my goal is actually anyone would buy this just because the benefit is just incredibly useful to them. And then it comes with a water efficient way to delivering that benefit. But that's exactly, you got it. That's my goal. And so that's what my brain time is about. And I'm not through yet. But that explains the other vertigo thing that I was talking about.
It's a pretty powerful 3 words, isn't it? Making sustainable irresistible.
Yeah.
Well, Will, I think we found a title for the podcast. Look at that
That's
perfect
it.
guess. He's even feeding the title to us right there.
As long as you copyright with my name and I can get all the royalties and get rich with that.
Oh, Frantz, you're going to get rich off of this podcast. It's going to be a whole other revenue stream for P&G.
Yeah, hopefully. But no, seriously, yeah, make sustainable irresistible. That you've got many ways you can create sustainable options. But I'm just thinking that if we make that irresistible, that's going to drive speed of adoption at scale fast. And we need that sense of urgency because, as you know, it's not like, we have a lot of time. So that's the obsession.
Yes, urgency, speed. Yeah, we talk about that all the time. That we just don't have. We never had time. I think now it's even clearer that the status quo is killing us, basically.
Yeah.
I think the other interesting thing of the bias fraction that you can bring with this, Frantz, is scale. This is, as well as a pilot, so you think about the companies you've got. First of all, you mentioned touching the lives of 5 billion people with enormous multinational, but other companies providing the appliances into homes, multinationals, you've got the World Economic Forum. So this is designed, even though you're going to perhaps start off with pilots, the ability to roll this out at scale and actually move the needle when it comes to kind of reducing water demand is phenomenal.
No, that's the intent. And that's why we have a group of multinationals, because we want to learn from these different pilots so that we form a scaling strategy. And of course, we'll work with many others. Of course, this is not just going to be the act of 10 companies with World Economic Forum and World Business Council and Water Resource Group. It's going to be, it's going to make babies. It's got to be. It's going to be local players that will, rally, with us as we develop local pilots as we scale. But for sure, we wanted to start with a core nucleus of companies that have that span, that multinationality, to look at what are we learning from one place to the other. How do we inform the scaling of that so that it really becomes, the homes of tomorrow.
Cool, I like it. Making sustainable, irresistible, and making babies. There's a kind of a type. There's definitely there's a commonality coming through here, Frantz, with your language.
Yeah, that irresistible word is the connector there. That's interesting. Frantz, how big is a pilot? So what have they been, and what would be a big pilot?
Yeah. For me, if I think about 3 pilots over the course of the 5-6 years in these different regions, I would say probably the first pilot would be a couple of apartments, lived-in apartments, and then the next one would be 10, and then the next one would be a multi-unit, multi-family unit, complex, or maybe 2, or maybe 3, or a little district. So you go from a low end of scale to a mid-scale to higher scale, so that we can really learn to de-risk. In basically increasing the scale, and that for me, and if you've got a few like those, I don't think you then need to make more scales. You can really start to create this big scale up.
Right. So a home, and an apartment or a condo, a city block, a neighborhood, a city. So it's I hate to say crawl, walk, run, but in terms of getting that feedback loop in terms of what works, what doesn't work, how do you change the system, where do you poke? Okay, that's really helpful.
And you got it, because I think, first we would want to change the system, the infrastructure within the home without touching the exterior of the home, the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But as we learn and de-risk that piece, now we want to learn about the outside and the inside, and how we get those two talking. If you think about a whole neighborhood and maybe some decentralized supply or grid of water treatment and supply. And so we want to ramp up the skills and learn one step at a time, as opposed to, put that all together and then, just get a big mess.
Right. I mean, this ties really nicely into, I don't want to say the movement away, but, sort of opening up from purely centralized systems to distributed, decentralized, both water supply and treatment systems, in terms of, your journey tracking that big trend and supporting it.
Absolutely. This is one of the feature of 50 to home. And by the way, I wanted to make a comment. We are looking for new building, but also retrofit. In fact, we've got to find retrofit solutions. It's got to be, and I would tell you even more, my primary priority right now is retrofit solutions. So we don't need to tear down buildings, or we don't need to wait until the next wave of constructions. And of course, new buildings makes a ton of sense, because it's easier to intercept a new building than to retrofit one. But we've got to be absolutely obscenely looking at retrofitting, and I would say that's the first priority, actually. So the first pilot should be a retrofit home.
Okay, that's really helpful. And I love a challenge, Frantz. So
yeah.
Perfect.
Vertigo. Did I talk about vertigo? And I'm getting.
I'll go back to the upstream, downstream value chain discussion.
I was going to suggest, if you're looking for a couple of pilot homes, maybe Will's apartment in Denver and my house in Worthing, South Coast. I mean, we're happy to nominate ourselves. We need to ask our respective partners and families, but why not?
Okay, so I'll sign up for this. This is a 100-year-old condo.
You see?
And I'm on the board of the Homeowners Association. So, Frantz.
That's a good challenge. Did you want to give me more vertigo, or like? I'm not looking.
No. We'll invite you out here, so there won't be any vertigo.
But the idea is indeed to be a retrofitting home. That's clear. So yeah, I like your sense of risk.
Why not?
I'm not going to preempt it, but we could have just seen the first signing of the pilot home with the 50 litre coalition on the screen. Mine's a 1930s semi-detached house, so 90 years old. We've been refurbishing it, but so happy. Yeah, if you need a couple of homes.
Well, let's follow up offline, as we say. Absolutely, but
we're just kidding. 20.
No, but I like your sense of voluntarism. I think that's fine. That's exactly. We want to retrofit homes, so yeah, of course, we want to be able to do that at the end. So,
finally, Frantz, I thought it'd be interesting to address. Because obviously, you've worked at Procter Gamble for some time, right? So obviously, working with a multinational comes with a certain level of in the best possible way process, right? But with the 50 litre home coalition, it's being run, as you've described to me, as a startup, almost, right? So have you been given full kind of creative control to kind of do it in conjunction with Procter & Gamble as a partner, right? Because I think that's really interesting. The two hats that you wear, you have your kind of day job, if you like, with Procter & Gamble, but at the same time, you're co-founding this. Yeah, this could be called a movement. So often, I'm just wondering if there's any, like, the two gel really well together.
No, well, first off, I would say that P&G is leaving me a lot of autonomy, and I'm not even asking for permission to be on your episodes, to be honest. So, I really leave autonomy. I'm a startup founder. That's how I call myself, inside and outside. And the startup is the same, whether it's an inside or an outside. It's a startup. It's called 50 litre home, right. And so I've got autonomy, and I've got, and P&G has learned over the last 5 years in particular how to be best in terms of being a startup at the scale of a multinational. Yeah. So I think I'm benefiting from that, and believe it or not, I'm being coached with a startup, type of, coacher, so that I'm actually doing these things properly. But to be honest, I'm living the life of a startuper, where I've got 20,000 things to do at the same time. because nothing is built, and it's like, oh my God, I've got the P&G side, I've got the external correlation side, and there's many priorities all piling up. We're talking about changing the world of the homes, but it's exciting. The last thing I would say is I'm actually working with P&Gs. I'm not just on my own, and that's really the commitment of the company. We're really creating other people from the business units to sort of help put their pieces of the puzzle jigsaw to the construction of the homes from a P&G standpoint, because it's not like P&G will launch 50-liter home. It's going to be brands that will carry the innovation, our brands that will carry the innovation, those that interface with the consumer. And so each of these business units is actually contributing and helping me. So I'm not on my own, but I'm left with a lot of autonomy to actually be able to act as a startup, as a true startupper, and do what I have to do on a daily basis.
That sounds like you've got the best of sort of both worlds, right, Will? You've got the full autonomy to run it as a startup, but at the same time, you've got the infrastructure and the colleagues and the backup needed where necessary.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really powerful combination of leveraging the P&G brand and the scale and impact with a startup mindset and that bias for action. Yeah,
absolutely. But I still need to report to my board, and I still owe a few results. Like, of course, the metrics are different than when you run a Tide initiative or a Pampers initiative. But of course, it's not like I've got no sense of commitment towards the company because they are my VC funders. At the end of the day, it's like any startups. You're going to get funds or you're not going to get funds. So you need to
right. So Frantz, this is very similar to something that Tom and I have talked about and written about, which is the skunk works within a bigger organization. So coming out of the Lockheed days, where Skunk Works was essentially a startup within a big company, and the cultures were aligned to drive innovation. So it's really interesting, and seemed very powerful.
I think that's what I'm living, and happily. But there's still a sense of commitments and a lot of fun.
Great
stuff. Well, Frantz, that we knew the time would absolutely fly by. So delighted to hear about the progress and the kind of story behind the 50-liter home coalition, how you are trialing every type of smart faucet or device in your home, which must be fun. And also the announcement that the first pilot homes will be in Denver, US, and Worthing, UK. So
there we go.
Great news. But listen, keep in touch, because I think this is a really, really interesting movement that we said at scale can kind of make a dent, right? So
no, thanks again, Tom, and Will, and I like what you say about the movement, and thanks again for hosting me, because hopefully that helps socialize the initiative and help seed further that movement. But and if hopefully you've got your title, Make Sustainable Irresistible, by all means, or it's I'm very flattered.
Well, we're on board, and we will. Frantz, one last thought. We've always said when we do this, it's obviously for the podcast, but we want to be part of the solution, and obviously. As I say, leaning in and helping however we can is important to get things done.
No, and I welcome that. And not only I like to be hosted there, but I definitely want to follow up offline anyway. So thanks for the invitation and for the further invitation, Will and Tom.
Sounds good. Yeah. Any links you have? Because I know you guys have just released the white paper, right? So we can make sure we'll put it into the description, just help to escalate it as well.
Absolutely, and we've got a website, so I can forward that so people could follow through on our links and read those white paper. Indeed, that white paper has just come out last week, so very fresh white paper.
Perfect.
Great stuff. Frantz,
thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Tom.
Frantz, good to see you. Be well.